Yo, what's good YouTube? Today I'm going to be cooking up placement ready beats. I'm going to be using a sample for this, but it's going to be my own loop. Let's get straight into it. So for this beat, I'm going to be using this sample. So as you can hear there, it sounds very emotional, so we're going to be making an emotional type beat. So just before we start, just remember if it's an MP3 file to cut out the beginning bit, because there may be a little bit of empty space. But because I exported this as a wave, I'm going to just cut the end because I know it's already in time. Then what I'm going to do here is just lay down some simple patterns just so I can get ready to start cooking up. I'm going to highlight this just so I can use this little bit to find a bounce and then arrange it. So one of the first things I do when making a beat is I go over here, soft clipper on the master, and then I'll also get the sample, go to generic clicking mode, change this to stretch, put it in track number 1 so I can EQ it. Now if you're using a loop, you'll want to EQ it. If you're not, make sure all your melodies are EQ'd so the bass is cut out, just so when you add your 808 it doesn't clash. But also you don't want to do it too much to where the flavour of the melody is all gone. So once we do that, the first thing I'm going to do is add a clap. So for this I'm going to be using my Intentions drum kit from Prod.Fadedwave. It's a free kit, it's really good for any genre. I'll leave a link for that in the description below. So for your clap, you're going to want to place it on the third beat right here, and what you want to do is just copy this over. Now just because this is a clap doesn't mean you can't add some bounce to it, so what I'm going to do is add a few little notes in between, change the velocity just so there's a little bit of rhythm in it. There we go, it's pretty simple but it sounds really fire and there's not too much going on. Then what I'm going to do is add a hi-hat just so I have the main bounce, then I can add my 808 and fill in some pockets with some perks. Then I'm going to do a 2-step hi-hat pattern, add some rolls just so I add some bounce. So as you'll see in here, I've only got a few types of rolls. I've only got about 2 or 3. This is because you don't want to overcomplicate things too much. So once I've got this, I'll just copy this over. Then I'll press Alt-R just to randomize it a little bit, make it not so robotic. Now one of the main things I do differently is I like change these little volume knobs here. I'd rather do it over here and then do it in the mixer over here, just so everything's a little bit more level. So as you can hear, we've got a perfect bounce. There's not many drum sounds, so we can add the 808 now. So because it's a fast BPM, we're using 168. I'm going to be going for a shorter 808 just so it hits a little bit better. Then for the 808, I'm going to lay down a really simple pattern. Now another thing with your 808, make sure you press cut itself just so it doesn't clip over because you don't want it sounding too muddy. Now on the second part of the 808, as you can see, I've added a little velocity change on one of the notes just so I add a little bit of bounce in this section, and then also I've added a slide note here just so it glides in and it feels a little bit better. Now I know some people struggle with the kick, but it's really, really simple. All you do is you've got to copy your 808 note, paste it in. Once you go in here, simply press Alt-K, and then it brings up this. This just puts it all in one note, and that means it simply follows the 808, which is really simple to do. And then I'll remove a few notes just to add that bounce between the 808 and the kick. See, there's only 4 drum sounds, it already sounds really fire. Now you could stop there, but who wants to do that? You want to add some character, you want to add some flavour. So what we're going to do is add some open hats, some perks, just to add a little bit more to the beat. So starting with the open hat, I'm going to use a really generic pattern for it, just because it always sounds really good. I'm going to place it here, here, and here. And that's all you really need to do, and then just copy that over. Sounds really fire. Then I've decided I'm not really going to go for a perk because it might be a little bit too much, but to fill in a little bit of space, I'm going to add a snare just so we have a little bit more bounce and I can change out things throughout the beat. Now a really simple snare pattern you can do just to add a little bit of bounce is you go over here, place on the third little thing here, and then I'm going to add a few more things just to add a little bit more. Literally sounds gas. So what I'm going to do now, go to arrangement, and it's really, really simple. Now I've arranged everything back into kind of a melody here, just so I can follow this. But one thing I have done is on my bass here and on my bass on my guitar, I've put them both on track 2. This is because I don't want the low end cut out on them, because I'm only going to have these really in the intro and the bridge just so they stand out a little bit more. And you don't really want the lows cut out, obviously, if you want them to have that flavour and texture. Then what I'm going to do is go into pattern 1, split channel. I'm going to just lay out all my drums here. Now it may seem really horribly boring to have it like this, and that's because it is. You don't want to just leave your beat like this, copy it over. That's horribly boring. So for arranging this kind of part, you want to cut out drums, you want to add drums in, you want to have a little bit of texture, make sure the flow a lot. So I'm going to quickly arrange this now, and then I'll get back afterwards. There we go, so I've got this really simple pattern laid down, pretty simple, there's not too much going on, but there is a few little things which I should mention. So as you can see in here, I've got my intro section, got my hook, and then I've got a pretty long verse. This is because I just want to change it up a little bit, make sure it's not too boring. So for this, I've got my intro, it's just playing the instrument, got the bass on it, got my hi-hat just to add a little bit to the intro, and then for the hook, I've got simple drums. You don't want too much happening in your hooks, you want something where it's actually easy to flow on, so I've cut out quite a few things and just added them in, spread over the verse. Then moving on to here, as you can see, I've cut out a few things. This is just to kind of signal where the verse kind of is. And then that would be a perfect opportunity for them to kind of come in or have like a certain word where hit on that beat to make it punch more. Then as you can see, I've kind of continued this over and I've cut this instrument out. And I've just filled this in with a clap, hi-hat, open hat, snare. Now there is something else I'm going to add here. This is just a little slide to make this bit hit a little bit more. So I'm going to make a new pattern here, and the first starting note is an E, so I'm going to make this the slide note. So to do that, you get this note here, which is just a normal note. I'm going to put the velocity to 0. I'm going to go over to here to a new one, put it on a slide note, make the velocity max, and put it over the top. Very subtle, but adds a lot of bounce. Then what I'm going to do is add a riser just to make sure it fills out a little bit more space in the beat. So for this, I'm going to go into my atomic drill drum kit just because I really like the risers in here. And the best thing about these risers is they are snapping to the grid, so no matter what BPM you're in, you don't need to kind of zoom in and see where the peak is. Automatically does it for you. So for this, I'm going to use my Ghost one. So what I'm going to do with the riser is place it on the hook. I'm going to place it on coming into the verse, and then you're going to place it back into the hook. So what you want to do from there is you don't want to overcomplicate things. You don't need to keep on doing more patterns. Literally copy it over. Boom. You've got a full beat. It's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's all you really need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my tag, play your full beat. Thank you for watching. Peace.